Right? How y'all doing? Odd day today. Many tiny projects. None of which I really want to talk about here, but you're going to catch a glimpse in a second. I've set up a small server today on one of our little PCs, a Minecraft server, because my spuds are playing on a mate's server and we don't want them to get banned because reasons. So we set up a local server again, and because the boys are too young to use services like Discord, I've just set them up. I've set up a local TeamSpeak server too. That's been fun. In the process of messing around with all that kind of stuff, you might notice, hang on a minute, Skaz, your setup's a wee bit different today. No one's noticed. I doubt anyone's noticed. Like, maybe a handful of people have clicked on this for the first time and been like, hey, mate. Well, if you're new, you wouldn't notice. But where is it? There should be a red cable down here. Give me one moment. You've seen me super cheap, mega wank audio setup. I say mega wank. It works. It does the job. It's actually really good for the money. It starts with one of these. It's a Behringer XM8500. And it's a little 15 quid dynamic microphone. Then you plug that into a Behringer Euphoria UMC22. They're about 30 to 50 quid. And for less than not a lot really, you get a decent audio setup, and it is really, for the money, a decent audio setup. Well, this is part of my big boy setup, and so I wanted to answer the question today because I randomly got a response for the Elgato HD60S Plus works in Linux. The question today is, does the Elgato Wave 3 microphone or Elgato Wave 1 work in Linux? Short answer, kind of. So, I'm using my semi-big boy setup, nice comfortable headphones. I've been using these as well today, Corsair Virtuoso. Are these the SEs, SE, whatever's the ones that mean them like metal and stuff. Not metal as in, yeah, metal, but actual metal. So the trick is, I've used a Wave 3, which is what this is, on Linux before. And I've had iffy success with it. Sometimes it works, other times it doesn't. Today, it works. In fact, even if I tap, which this didn't work before, but I've done some fiddling with it today, which is literally just, I discovered something. Ready? Check this out. So I'm going to keep on talking. And then fingers crossed the audio's come back. The mute button works on the top. Once upon a time, that used to not work. Although it turns out that if you muted it and it didn't come back, just go into your sound settings and turn the microphone up again. It would just keep on telling the microphone to mute. Somehow that's working today. Great. But the trick with this microphone is it has some magic jiggery pokery features in it that tie into software that allow you to kind of route sources through it. It's almost like a virtual audio cable setup or a voice meter banana setup. VAC and VM Banana are like the same thing, but one of them has a kind of cool name and the other one's a bit goofy, but same job in that you can route your audio sources through all these magical bits through software, and they go to different places and different outputs, and there's no need for a mixer board or anything like that. One of the key selling points to this microphone was that, and I have to say, well, none of that's going to work on Linux because that's all part of software, and I think that's only available on Windows. I don't even know if they've got that on Mac yet. And so, realistically, I mean, you'd say no, you wouldn't use it. But when I first got this, which is when it first came out, because I like to dick around with audio hardware quite a lot, even if I don't realistically need it, the software was awful. In my opinion, it was terrible. It didn't remember settings. It heavily relies on the Windows Audio Mixer, or there's like a way to route audio in Windows Audio to different applications, and so it would install like different sound devices on your machine, and then you would say, well, send browser to Wave 3 browser, and that would send it to that route it to that audio source, and then you could control that audio source in the software that came with it. Kind of the same groove that you do with stuff like Voice Meter, Banana, and Virtual Audio Cable. You would set up a cable, and then you'd tell the software to route its audio to there, and then you would control it in another piece of software. Same groove, except this is a hardware serial key for that. And the trick is, if the software doesn't respect what the Windows sound mixer is set to, so for example, a game I played a while back, Fall Guys, all that would play through, regardless of what you set it to, it would just go, screw that, I'm just going to the system default. Well, the software didn't work then. If it wouldn't listen to where you wanted it to go, if it didn't route where you told it to, and only went to system default, you'd have to do things the old-fashioned way, which would be going to the actual volume mixer of your operating system and adjust the audio there. So I actually found myself not really using the Elgato software for much of anything, and I've never really been a huge fan of Virtual Audio Cable either. I'm more of a hardware guy, but I like mixers and stuff like that, but it's the software-y side of stuff is nice, and it's come a long way. So if you wanted to use all those fancy routing features, our survey says on Linux, no. But we do have other ways of doing that anyway, so not really important. So would you really spend, I can't remember how much this is, like over 150 plus pounds. Would you spend that much money on this? No, of course not. No. I think the Wave one's like 125, which is kind of coming more in line with the Yeti, the Blue Yeti, and the Blue Yeti Nano. And I think they've released a new one, which is the Yeti X. Now, here's the trick as well. The Yeti X is another microphone that has specific features that only work with software. I'm sure the base features will work in Linux, but some of the magic jiggery pokery there doesn't work without the specific software. Lots of stuff needs specific software to get all of the features out of them. Like my headphones I just brought up, the Corsair Virtuosos. You can't change any of the settings in those on Linux, like the sleep timer and all that kind of. You can't change any of those without Windows. But once you've got them all set up and you plug it in, it's gravy. Same kind of groove here, realistically. You can use it as a Billy Bob Basic USB microphone as you can many other things. I think that's kind of the area that a lot of Linux users aim for. Can I plug it in and does it work? If the answer is yes, that's good enough. We don't need all of the magic features that a lot of these things are shipped with. So in the case of like some capture cards, it's like, well, you can stream with it and you can record a clean copy of your video using our software. We can't use it. We're just happy to have the video feed being pulled in somehow. Some audio devices, we're just happy if it captures clean audio. We don't need any magic jiggery pokery to happen. We just want it to work. So we kind of aim for the more basic features. As long as the basic features are there, we don't really care. Linux users to a degree also don't mind paying a premium if they really, really, really want to do a job and it's on Linux. I wouldn't say go for a Wave 3 if you're on Linux, but as I say, like, there are lots of things where features don't work. Or we end up like really cheaping out. I've shown the super cheap audio setup, the UMC 22 and one of the little cheap microphones, but here's the trick. So here's the trick. This is a nice sounding microphone. I think it's a nice sounding microphone. I didn't think any of the stuff worked on here. If you were going to go with a Wave on Linux, then go Wave 1, not Wave 3. Because on the front, there's some magic things, and, well, without the software, they don't work either. Let me show you. Right, my audio is going to be terrible whilst I do this, because, you know, we're now looking through a camera, and I'm now away from the microphone. But see these little lights on the front with all the knobbly bits on them. Well, they're supposed to light up. There's a set of options here, and you'd click this, and they would change. They'd light up, and you'd be able to then twiddle this little dial on the front and adjust microphone, headphone, and then an audio mix. I didn't think they worked because the lights didn't come on. Just the same as the mute. You'd tap the mute on the top and a little ring would glow around it. So you're muted, mate. That doesn't work. So as I say, I assumed none of this works. None of it worked. However, I learnt today that it does. So one sec. I don't know what I'm on now. And I've got my actual desktop stuff here, which you can't really see, but just to prove a point, we'll turn down the ISO, and you should now be able to see my output device is the Elgato Wave 3, my input device is the Elgato Wave 3, and let's twiddle some dials. So bring that back up to 800. So I'm going to try changing these settings. Let's see. I think that's system sound. Now there's nothing I can really do to show you that system sound is doing something. Just take my word for it. I'll click again, and in theory that'll be microphone. So if I turn, oh no, I was already on microphone. I'm now on the stereo mix. You can't hear that. I can now hear room sound as I adjust this. So I can now hear myself talk, I can hear myself talk, there's nothing. I can hear myself, and then there's nothing. So the next one should be system sound, I think. Let's see, if I turn that all the way down, nope, I think I've got hold of the microphone slider. Bring that back up, bring it up. Yeah, so it is working, as you should be able to hear, but it's not ideal. Now, the funny thing is, when you fiddle with these settings, they don't actually change anything on the computer at all. Like none of the menus pop up to, none of the interface options pop up to say, oh, you're changing this, you're changing that. None of that happens. You're just kind of doing it blindly because none of the buttons function, none of the lights function. So if you then actually kind of manage to somehow cock it up, if I go over to my computer to the sound window and I go, oh wait, I'm going to bump up the mic and it's going to clip really bad. It might already be clipping really bad now, but let's whap that all the way up. I'm probably really badly clipping right now. So if I turn that down, there you go. Turn it back. It should now be middle of the road-ish. There you go. Just literally grab the slider from your sound manager, and it works. You can just pull it back down and it'll reset it. So there's something going on here. It's just not interfacing properly with the user interface, which is, it's usable. Is it ideal? No, but I don't imagine you're going to go out and spend this kind of money for a microphone like this for an operating system it doesn't fully support. But I just wanted to show it does in fact work. You just can't do any of that fancy audio routing stuff. I will say this. So someone's going to say, well, this is a really stupid video. I just wanted to show that it does work. If you are a Windows user and you happen to have something like this laying about and you're thinking of coming to Linux, but you're panicking that half of your stuff ain't going to work, your microphone is at least going to work as a regular USB microphone and a USB sound card. You can plug in. I've got my headphones plugged into here. I can play music through them and still listen to the tunes and adjust my volume on the computer, and it'll still work. That is still an option. The audio routing stuff, not so much. Yeah, mute switch still works. Yeah, stuff on the front still kind of works, although it doesn't really do anything to the main operating system as far as interface is concerned. Like, you will not visually see that you've turned audio up or the microphone up or the audio mix up or down. You won't see it. You won't know it until you do it, but it's easy enough to reset, so it's not that big of a deal. At that point, the difference between the Wave 1 and the Wave 3 is that, well, the Wave 1 doesn't have any of this fancy fluff on the front, and I don't even think it has a mute on the top. I like this microphone having a mute on the top, because you can just kind of very lightly just brush your finger over it and it mutes the mic, because there's often times when people come in, they start talking to me, I'm like, oh god, and then I just tap the top. Kind of expensive, like a very expensive mute switch, when realistically I could just have a hotkey on my keyboard, which I do, by the way, is Control and minus. Look, I'll do that now. Ready? Ready? Check this out, check this out. Press Control and minus. There's no sound. Weren't that great? You know, yeah, it works. The Wave 1 would probably be a better option if you're not after all that software mixer jiggery pokery. If you just like the sound of the microphone, then you could use it. But then, as I say, Linux users tend to just be happy with what we've got, because we don't tend to get support. I will happily use Windows, Mac, or Linux. Less Mac, really, if I can help it, and I'd rather not use Windows, but I do have a lot of Windows-specific kit. I like to play with this stuff, so I like to see how it works, I like to see how it sounds, I like to see what options are on the market, so that if anyone says to me, you got any recommendations, I can be like, yeah man, that's alright. That's not bad. But Linux users tend to go, mate, I've got a £12 or a £7 UVC capture card. It captures crap colour, but it works. We don't care. It works, right? And plus, given that a lot of stuff on Linux isn't as, I'm going to really rock the boat here, isn't as advanced as a lot of stuff on Windows and Mac. User friendly, I would probably say, as on Windows and Mac. We tend to get our hands dirty a bit more, and I think we're better off for it. I would say, as a good example, if you're, say, editing video, right, or doing photo editing or whatever, there are lots of kind of one-click tricks to do big jobs in Windows and Mac software. So like in Final Cut or Premiere, you can do all this magic jiggery pokery, and it'll start aligning clips and comboing clips and all that kind of stuff, all in one click. You don't even have to know how it works. Linux software, Linux things don't tend to have all that magic jiggery pokery, but you can still do it if you know how the stuff works. And so, you know, once upon, like, people were doing all those one-click tricks back in the day, a long time ago, but they were doing them manually. You know, if you know how they're done, they can still be done. We have learnt from nothing up. And so, as I say, I think we're better for it, because if there ever comes a time when someone then goes, well, that option's now not available to me, that one-click trick isn't available to me, how can I do that? You should learn it. And you should never assume that a higher end piece of equipment is going to give you a better job than a lower end piece of equipment, especially if you haven't learnt your basics. So I'm probably actually blowing out my audio something chronic here because I've been fiddling with it, but any microphone can sound pretty decent if you know how to set it up. You know, any sound card can give you a somewhat reasonable result if you know how to set it up. Same with cameras. Any camera will give you a decent result if you know how to set it up. You can do any kind of edit in a very basic program if you know the individual steps to do the trick that one-click thing does. You can do it. It just takes more time. It's not as convenient. If you instantly assume that the better gear is going to give you a better result, you're just going to find that whatever that device is, it's just guessing for you. It's just using all of its magic jiggery pokery to guess what you want, and it'll give you something close to what you want. But eventually you will end up in a situation where it's not going to give you what you want, and you're not going to know how to get what you want. So what I'm saying is, don't rely on trickery. software trickery and you know, newer, better stuff. Learn your craft is what I'm saying, because you will be better for it. What that has to do with a microphone, I don't really know, but you know, learn your groove. Don't just look at it and go, I need that, because then you're going to end up with gear paralysis, and then you're going to be too scared to actually do anything. Or you're going to get the gear, do something with it, and be shit. And you don't want to be shit, do you? Because then you're going to start blaming the gear, and it's not the gear's fault, it's yours. So, I mean, I've been dicking around with audio gear since tape decks were a thing, like dicking around with cassettes. Ooh, I feel old now. You know, Fisher-Price, my first tape recorder that took D batteries, man. That was my entrance to audio. And I loved it. And now I'm butchering it on the internet for people to hear. The Elgato Wave 3 and the Elgato Wave, I keep saying the Wave 3 just because that's what I've got here, but the Elgato Wave series of microphones do in fact work on Linux if you are willing to just use them as basic microphones. Other options would include stuff like the Blue Yeti, Yeti Nano, Snowball, pretty much any USB mic on the market. You don't have to go super expensive. Understand that these magic jiggery pokery features aren't going to work because there's just no software to support them. If they require software to run, they're not going to work. But we can at least get basic features out of it, and it sounds pretty good given what we have access to. I think so anyway. Would I pay all that money knowing the features wouldn't work? No, I'd say go Wave 3 or Wave 1, or like I said, go for one of the other microphones. Even a Blue Snowball's alright if you know what you're doing. Even if you don't know what you're doing, it's alright. Just a series of experiments I'm doing with other hardware that doesn't advertise Linux support, but we'll see how far we can take it. Also gone and got gone through the UVC setup. We've got an AverMedia web camera here for 1080/60 over USB 2. Just in case anyone's curious, it's the 315 by AverMedia USB 2, 60 frames a second, and it works. It's pretty full featured in Linux. So, you know, if you want a 60 frame per second web camera on Linux, it's not a bad one. Learn your craft. Don't rely on expensive gear. If you want expensive gear, or you already have one and you want to go to Linux, it works, kind of. Wave wouldn't be a better choice. But I already had a Wave 3. In fact, I actually use this Wave microphone either on my PC down here sometimes, when I'm in Windows, which isn't often, to be honest with you. That and this microphone, when I'm using it as an audio output, really doesn't like Rocksmith, which is a guitar gain. Doesn't work. Just doesn't like it at all. So my cheap audio interface, the Behringer UMC22 or the Focusrite Scarlett 202 that I normally have in my bag, or the 204 HD from Behringer, those probably all top that out as far as audio interface is concerned when you're trying to play guitar through Rocksmith. But I normally use this on an Asus ROG Strix GL503 VM. So a Windows gaming laptop with it's an Intel 7700 HQ and a GTX 1060 in it. Why haven't I put Linux on it? For the simple reason that the trackpad shits the bed. Like literally, no matter what I do, I can't seem to get the trackpad to work properly. I mean, it works, just, you know, when you're quickly trying to, you know, do things with the track, it just doesn't work. And whilst I do carry around a mouse with me at all times, sometimes you just want to quickly move something out of the way. I don't know, you're trying to hide your porn or whatever. You just want to use your trackpad. You don't care about the indecent exposure suit that comes from it, but you want to hide what you were looking at. So Kawasaki and Honda.com, fantastic sites. If you haven't checked them out, I would, but just don't do it at work. It's not safe. All right. But yeah, I normally use stuff like this on the Windows laptop that I could never realistically get to work on Linux. I just can't be bothered because I've got other Linux laptops lying about. This, work on that. Not so much here on here, but works. It works. That was the point of this video. It's now 27 minutes long, rabbiting on shit. I'm heading off. So I hope you're well. Maybe buy a Wave microphone if you like the sound. If I haven't butchered 2/3 of this audio and have to shoot the video again. If not, then go find something else. Just learn how audio works. Oh, do me a favor as well. Learn which way you have to talk into a microphone. Is it a I can't remember what the word is. It like side address microphone? Where the fuck is the capsule facing? Okay, don't get a microphone and talk into the top of it as if the capsule ain't facing you and it sounds like shit. It's because you're probably talking into it wrong. All right, look at which way you have to hold it to talk into it. The thing on the floor, microphone points at your mouth. This thing here, microphone that way, talking to the front of it. Not the top of it, the front of it. Yeti, talking to the front of it. Okay? Most other condenser microphones, talking to the front of it. Not the top of it, front of it. Look at which way you have to talk to your microphone. Then you might get better results. Learn some mic presence, like placement and stuff like that too. Although I'm probably butchering this and spitting plosives into the mic, something chronic. But if anyone wants an audio tutorial, I'm probably not the best guy to give it to you. But if you want one, just give me a shout and I'll talk you through some very basic microphone setup, placement, and all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you all with a bit of luck in the next one.